This is Robert Stearns. Hey, I want to thank you for tuning in. I really believe that learning is one of the greatest joys in life. And one of the greatest ways to learn is simply to have meaningful conversations, both with those who come from a similar background as yours, as well as those whose background might be very different. So my hope is that as we connect and converse with leaders from all around the world, that we will learn and grow together. If you're new with us, hit the subscribe button and we'll deliver the new episodes to you right away. So wherever you are, on a run, in the car, at the kitchen table with some coffee, welcome to the conversation. All right, and welcome indeed. Welcome, welcome. As you can see, I am not coming from the studio. I am in an undisclosed location, a bunker deep in the mountains. So some of you know where I am, some of you do not, but I'm not in studio. I am in a mountaintop retreat. Can you all see me and hear me? Somebody let me know, because I'm not in the studio, so I don't know if any of this is working. I hope it is. But first of all, welcome everybody. And many of you have been, yes, that is right. Look at you. Okay. I am writing the book. In fact, we may have actually finished the book today. Many of you know I've been working on my next book, which is going to be Lessons from the Life of Nehemiah. We've been working on the book for, close to a year, but not really in a concentrated fashion, just in different blocks. And so I'm on a writing retreat, and I think today we got it done. We started going through, and we're doing a polishing now, taking chapter by chapter and just putting on the final polish to that. Carol Levin, God bless you, Carol Levin. Good to have you tune in. We don't have a title yet, Allison. We're working on a title. Maybe I should take nominations for title. But it's going to be Life Lessons from Nehemiah. Maybe we'll do that. Somebody remind me. We'll do kind of a crowdsourcing thing and look at the title. One title we were thinking of was 52 days, because they rebuilt the wall in 52 days. You know, what can be accomplished in a person's life if you give focus and attention and priority for 52 days. Folks, look at everybody signing in all across the country. Sign in, tell us who you are, where you're watching from. Hit the share button. I need you to do that quickly. We want to get to our rabbi. Really, we are immensely honored to have him with us tonight. I'll introduce him momentarily. But let us know who you are, where you're watching. Diana Hogue is here from Anaheim, California. Kristen Harl Elliott from Buffalo. Laverne Spencer, Crown Heights, Brooklyn is here. Columbus, Indiana is here. Elverson, Pennsylvania is here. Rodney Saltzman from Florida is here. What an incredible, incredible crew. Sign in. Tell us where you're watching from. Catalina is here from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Carol Levin from the Hamptons is here. June Brooks from Bolingbrook, Illinois is here. What a crowd. What an absolutely great crowd. Denise is here from Freehold, New Jersey. Allison is here from Canada. She's originally from Australia. Welcome, 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 everybody. Hit the share button. It's going to be a fantastic night. Two quick announcements I do not want you to miss. Two quick announcements. Number one, if you live in the New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania area, okay, New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, March the 12th at 6 p.m. March the 12th at 6 p.m., New Jersey celebrates Israel. We will be gathering together on March the 12th, 6 p.m. in New Brunswick. If somebody from the office, there we go, New Brunswick, New Jersey. Consul General Asaf Zamir will be our guest of honor. Rabbi Matthew Gewirtz, Rabbi Matt Gewirtz, an esteemed rabbi from New Jersey, will be bringing remarks and the invocation. Mark Gerson will be our special keynote speaker. So I'd like all of you to get the date down. If you're anywhere within a 2.5 hour radius, you will not want to miss that night. New Brunswick, New Jersey, March the 12th, 6 p.m. We did it early so that if you have to travel, you've got time to travel back. Consul General Asaf Zamir, Mark Gerson, and Rabbi Matt Gewirtz. We will be hosted by Apostle George Seawright. It's going to be an amazing, amazing event. So don't miss it, all right? Then number 2, April the 1st, if you are on the West Coast. Do I have any West Coasters tonight? All right, let me know if you're on the West Coast. Wow, people are signing in left and right. We've got Wernersville, Pennsylvania on board. Rancho Cucamonga, April the 1st. We will be having, are you ready for this? This may be the largest interfaith Passover Seder in history. I've got to see if we can get into the Guinness Book of World Records for this. We are going to have 1,000 people for a Passover Seder in Rancho Cucamonga, hosted by Mark Gerson and Rabbi Erica Gerson. Rabbi Erica will be leading the Passover Seder. Consul General Hillel Newman will be with us, because I'm sure that Dina DePasquale has already secured Consul General Hillel Newman to be with us as our guest. And that will be at Pastor Adam Mesa's megachurch, Abundant Life, a megachurch of many, many multiple thousands. And as far as we know, this will be the largest Passover Seder interfaith in history. We have 1,000 people anticipating to be there. So either of those two events, March 12th in the East Coast, April 1st on the West Coast, we want you to be with us and be a part of these incredible, incredible special upcoming events. All right. So good to have everybody here. Hit the share button, invite people in. If you're just tuning in, get us your name. Tell us where you're watching from around America and around the world. We have with us tonight, it's rare that you have the privilege of walking alongside people who literally are making history. But our guest tonight is being used by Hashem, being used by God to rewrite history in our time. He is the incredibly well-known and gifted Rabbi Marc Schneier from the Hamptons Synagogue. He is our family's rabbi. He flew to Buffalo to help oversee the bar mitzvah of Isaac. And then we drove to the Hamptons, where he hosted the B'nai Mitzvah, the bar mitzvahs of Michael and Daniel. So kind of Rabbi to do that. His son Brendan accompanied him to Buffalo for Isaac's bar mitzvah. But Rabbi Marc Schneier has just recently, the president of Israel, President Isaac Herzog, has said that he is the most influential rabbi in the world when it comes to Jewish-Muslim relations. He is the one where we see all of the breakthrough in the Middle East and the peace that is beginning to come between these three the sons of Abraham, the Muslim and the Jewish people. Rabbi is architecting this, and through his relational diplomacy is helping that to happen. He is the one who recently brought President Erdogan of Turkey into a much closer relationship with the state of Israel. He is doing incredible, groundbreaking work. He was just with the Pope in Bahrain when you saw Pope Francis traveled to Bahrain. Rabbi Schneier was there right in the midst of these meetings. It was with Rabbi Schneier that I flew to Azerbaijan at his invitation, got together about 20 leading evangelical pastors. This is a man who the hand of God is on in an undeniable way to rewrite history in our time. Now, just before we bring him on, I want to say this. For many of us, even the concept of Jewish-Christian dialogue has been something that has stretched us, something we've had to grow into. And it might be hard for us as evangelicals to think, well, how are we supposed to relate to the Islamic world? The Jewish world we can understand because they're calling on Adonai. They're calling on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But the Muslim world, I want you to open your heart, open your mind, because Rabbi can help lead us into these places for us to understand if we're going to pray for peace, then we also have to work for peace, and we have to rejoice when peace begins to come. So without any further ado, can we give a huge Eagles Wings welcome to Rabbi Marc Schneier. Rabbi, there you are. Welcome, my brother. It's so good to have you back on the program.
Always a pleasure, and congratulations on your 4th season. Robert, it's all about staying power. You have it.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you so much. And Rabbi, you are a joy. You are one of these just special people. Tell us a little bit, Rabbi, because I know your story, and I know that 25 years ago, you were not known for bridge building in the Muslim world. You were known for bridge building between the Jewish and African American community.
Correct.
You are a close personal friend of the family of Martin Luther King. You were intimately involved in the King Center and the King family. You literally wrote the book about Jewish relations with the African American community. And then, having worked in that space for such a long time, you were led by the wisdom of God to begin to build bridges to the Muslim community. But Rabbi, that was happening in a time, I mean, we had 9/11, we had ISIS, we had Osama bin Laden. So many people were fleeing this space. Many people were putting up walls of fear. You had the courage, the wisdom, the shalom to walk into this space. Unpack that journey for us.
Well, it's a very similar trajectory that I had in Black Jewish relations. When I first entered the field of Black Jewish relations 34 years ago, and I was committed to lead the effort to rebuild the historic alliance between Blacks and Jews that led to many of the greatest social and political changes in our nation. That was a time when Louis Farrakhan was at his peak. That was a time when you had the devastating riots in Crown Heights, pitting Blacks against Jews. And I was not the most popular individual in the Jewish community for leading that charge. But, thank God, we were enormously successful in terms of redefining the state of Black Jewish relations as being one of cooperation, not one of conflict. I think in light of an uptick in anti-Semitism that we're seeing here in America, particularly anti-Semitism that's emanating from the Black community, you will see over the next several weeks my foray back into the space, particularly with Reverend Al Sharpton, who's Sharpton and I, 2019, had that historic press conference when Reverend Sharpton was unequivocal in his disdain, not only denouncing but renouncing, anti-Semitism, particularly within the Black community. And it's a very, very wonderful history. There was no segment of American society that provided as much and as consistent support to Dr. King and to the Black community as did the Jewish community. But King had a zero tolerance for anti-Semitism. He was a great advocate for the state of Israel. He was a great supporter for the plight of Soviet Jewry, which was a big cause in the 60s and 70s. And we need to bring that alliance back to where we were back in the civil rights, even where we were 5 or 10 years ago. But it was around 2005 that we felt mission accomplished in terms of rebuilding Black-Jewish relations. And I felt at the time, Robert, that the greatest challenge in the 21st century, interreligious challenge, would be to find the path to narrow the gap, the chasm, the divide between 1.6 billion Muslims and 16 million Jews. And you know something about my personality, my tenacity, my perseverance, my persistence. And what a remarkable, remarkable story in terms of the state of Muslim-Jewish relations today.
Rabbi,
as it comes to Israel.
Let me interrupt you for a moment. Let me ask you, what motivates you? What gives you the, if I can use the word chutzpah, when everyone else is running from the space? Is it something that is it this concept of tikkun olam, of repairing the world? Is it a sense, what gives you that sense to reach out when others are saying, be careful, run away? Because it strikes me, Rabbi, that many people are motivated by fear, but you decided to not respond to fear, but to respond out of a better place.
Some people respond to fear, others are fearless. And it's no different than the major institution we built in the Hamptons. People thought that a small group of us, 32 years ago, we were mad. Build a synagogue in the Hamptons. There's no Jewish community, particularly an Orthodox synagogue, and today it's one of the most celebrated synagogues in the Jewish world. I feel that God gifted me not only with vision, but also with the ability, the capacity to execute that vision. And I will always look for that space where I can make a difference. It's not about, the majority of religious leaders, issuing a statement here, a statement there. I mean, at the end of the day, what difference, are they really making? For me, it's all about making a difference. It's very similar to your journey. Look at the difference, the profound difference you've made in terms of strengthening evangelical and Christian-Jewish relations. And maybe that's why we are brothers from, I don't know which mother, but we have a lot in common, my friend. We have a lot in common.
We do. And I'm honored by that. And a large portion of my success has been due to your support and your kindness. And folks, I want to tell you, if you have not experienced one of the services at the Hampton Synagogue, you are missing out. The presence of the sacred, the presence of the holy at the synagogue is absolutely extraordinary. And you can experience it through their television broadcast. I'm going to ask Rabbi to give us the details in a moment.
We're now on NBC Comcast. And these numbers, Robert, this is not Marc Schneier hyperbole, all right? NBC has told us that between our Friday evening and Saturday morning services, anyone who has Comcast Xfinity or Xfinity Comcast, we have 200,000 viewers every weekend on nationwide television. It's unprecedented in Jewish history. And again, you look at the quality of our service. It's not the run-of-the-mill, particularly the music of our service. Again, very, very proud to be in a position and to have such great leadership. Listen, the president of my congregation, Carol Evan, is listening to our podcast right now. And when you have the Carol Evans of the world behind you, you can make a profound difference in the world.
Carol and Jerry are amazing, precious people who I met through you, and they've become very dear to my family. Folks, I want to encourage you, sign up follow Rabbi's ministry and specifically tune in for the television broadcast. I get chills when I sit in their services. There's an overwhelming sense of the holiness of God, the presence of God. And Rabbi keeps the atmosphere so pure in the synagogue. And it's just a remarkable thing. We love you, Carol. Folks, if you've just tuned in today, we're here with the distinguished global leader, Rabbi Marc Schneier of the Hampton Synagogue and also of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding. His groundbreaking work between the Jewish and Muslim community and the state of Israel and the Arab world. I want you to follow him on all of his social media outlets. He's on Twitter and Facebook. You are on Instagram, Rabbi, but I think mostly Facebook and Twitter. Is that where you live the most?
Well, we're evolving.
Okay.
So hopefully that's one of my 2023 New Year's resolutions, to follow in your footsteps, Robert, and to have a greater presence on Instagram as well.
It seems to be.
And you can always go to the Hampton Synagogue website, which is www.thehamptonsynagogue.org.
And we already have it in the comments for everybody. It's already there. So go and follow Rabbi there. It's just amazing to see day by day history made through our brother's life. And Rabbi, when we talk about this history, you're following in the footsteps of your forefathers. By the way, Rabbi, we should mention that you are, do I have it right, the 15th generation of rabbis? Is that correct?
18th.
18th.
Correct.
Folks, he is the 18th, 18 generations of rabbis. He follows in the footsteps of your illustrious father, Rabbi Arthur Schneier, is still living. He's still in the pulpit. How old is he?
He's turning 93.
90.
And it's a very appropriate day to mention him, because today the Christian world mourned the passing of Pope Benedict.
Yep.
And it was Rabbi Arthur Schneier who hosted Pope Benedict in 2008 at his congregation at Parkey Synagogue. That was the only papal visit ever to a synagogue in the United States.
So I hope you heard that, folks. Rabbi Schneier's father, Arthur Schneier, who still is in the pulpit at 93, still as vital as ever, he was the only one in history to host a pope in an American synagogue when Pope Benedict was here. So it's extraordinary. We're sitting with, honestly, royalty of the kingdom of God tonight, and it's such a blessing. And Rabbi, it's appropriate tonight. We're turning to the Parsha, Vayechi. We're in Genesis chapter 47. Genesis chapter 47, and we're coming to these last moments of Jacob's life. And we've been talking about Jacob. I mean, what a conflicted individual, what a dramatic individual. So much happens in and through Jacob's life. Abraham has the vision, he has the dream, but he leaves this earth only having Isaac as the son of promise. Isaac understands a little more of where God is wanting to take this dream that his father had, but it really is not until we come to Jacob. And Jacob begins to actually birth and father. He becomes the patriarch of the tribes. Of course, his heart is broken and crushed when his favorite son, Joseph, seems to be dead, seems to be taken from him. He's taken into exile in Egypt. And then there's the amazing, amazing story of this reconciliation between Joseph and his brothers. And Rabbi is demonstrating for us some of this reconciliation. Rabbi, you've just returned from the World Cup, and you single-handedly, not the World Cup, the World.
Yes, yeah. The World Cup in Qatar. where I served as the interfaith advisor.
And Rabbi, it was because of your work that, do I have this right? For the first time in history, kosher food was served in Qatar. Is that accurate?
I had made 3 conditions with the Qataris in order for me to serve in this capacity. First, that all Jewish fans would have access to kosher food. So we opened the first kosher kitchen in Doha. I called it bagel diplomacy. My other conditions were that all Jews, including Israelis, could attend the World Cup. Now understand, there are no diplomatic relations between Qatar and Israel, and there would be direct flights between Tel Aviv and Doha. Mission accomplished. The Qataris delivered on all 3 commitments to me. 15,000 Israelis were in attendance at the World Cup. I expanded my horizons. I know about soccer. I never understood the passion behind football, in the greater world.
Right.
I actually, on one of my visits, during the World Cup, I brought my son Brendan with me. But in all seriousness, it was a wonderful demonstration, not only in terms of the Qataris delivering on their commitments to me, but of their commitment to interreligious dialogue and, more important, interreligious cooperation. And, Robert, you speak of the reconciliation of brothers between Joseph and his brothers. And there's a very, very profound lesson here because, when Joseph first sees his brothers before him as the viceroy of Egypt,
Right.
he sees the brothers who sold him into slavery. And his greatest challenge is one of memory. He can remember how his brothers mistreated him, how they cast him into a pit, sold him into slavery. Or he can also remember how he provoked his brothers, how he taunted his brothers, how it was his dreams of dominance, destined dominance over his brothers. So, the choice he had to make is, what should he choose to remember? Should he choose to remember how he was injured? Or should he choose to remember how he injured others? And that's a very important lesson, particularly as we begin the new year. Because if you think of how many relationships, ties have been broken in terms of family, friends, there was an unpleasant scene. There was a heated exchange. There was an explosive moment. And we tend to focus on that, but wouldn't it be wiser to forget the hurts and to remember all the love of family and friendship? So in the coming year, very often, what we shall be will be dependent on what we choose to remember. And Joseph set that example for us. He chose to forgive the hurts and to remember the love.
It's profound. And what is called to mind is his phrase that as he's remembering, as you say, from a redemptive perspective, he is then transformed in his thinking. And he says that amazing phrase. He says, you may have meant it for evil, but God meant it for good.
Correct.
In other words, in the final analysis, God is sovereign and God allowed
God's master plan.
That's it. Even the negative things in our life, when we look back, we can understand they were being worked for a greater purpose.
Look,
Rabbi,
as you know, Robert, life's most valuable lessons are learned in the classroom of adversity.
yes.
And there are people who are victims of circumstance, But there are others who can take those negative events and become victors of circumstance. That's where we need to be.
And I want to encourage you folks, if you're watching tonight, I mean, God wants you to be a victor in the midst of your circumstance. Every single one of us, I promise you, behind our Instagram pages and behind our Facebook posts, every single one of us faces stress, challenge, difficulty. It's part of the human condition. None of us escape it. The scripture says rain falls on the just and the unjust. So the difference is, how do we respond to those circumstances? One of the quotes in the book that I'm working on this week comes from Viktor Frankl. He was the famous psychologist, a Jewish psychologist who was imprisoned during the Shoah, during the Holocaust. And he said, I realized that the Nazis could take from me every single thing except one. They could not take from me my power to choose my emotional response, to choose my mindset. In the final analysis, that is the power that God gives us, that gift of free will. How do we respond in every circumstance?
And the gift of choice. Gift of choice.
And Rabbi, I want to bring this back then into the Parsha here, because we see Jacob, and Jacob is dying in Egypt. He's been reunited with Joseph. The final days of his life, thank God, are idyllic. His children have blessing among them. There's reconciliation, and the famine has passed. And then there's this amazing verse. It says, when the time drew near for Jacob to die, he called for Joseph, and he said, if I found favor in your eyes, swear to me, do not bury me in Egypt, but when you leave Egypt, bury me with my fathers. And of course, we're going to see this repeated. This example is then repeated for Joseph. Joseph has the same commission. He says, don't leave my bones here. I know God is going to take us to a land. I know God's going to bring us to a land of promise. Bring me there. Rabbi, what is it in the heart of a Jewish person that in your last moments, their thoughts turn toward Zion? Their thoughts turn toward the future. Their thoughts turn toward that land. It's extraordinary.
The land of Israel, it's our heritage, it's our history, it's our language, it's our Sabbath. It is at the very, very core of Judaism. I mean, how often, in terms of my own journey with different heads of states throughout the Muslim world, where I had to explain to kings, to emirs, to presidents, that the state of Israel for us is not some 75-year-old political aspiration. It's at the very core of Judaism. You cannot be a practicing Jew and not have a full love and a full regard, for the land of Israel. So what Jacob and Joseph are telling their children, we want to go home. We want to go home. And that is the Jewish homeland, and why it's the state of Israel, particularly in 2023, that is responsible for having restored the honor and the dignity of the Jewish people. You think back to since the exile from the land of Israel 2,500 years ago. You think back to the exile, you think back to the Crusades, you think back to the Inquisitions, the pogroms, and then the climax, with the killing of the 6 million during the Holocaust. It's only the state of Israel that is responsible for having chartered a new and more dignified role for the Jewish people, and why the Jewish people must always put Israel as the number one priority, first and foremost.
And I just want to challenge us tonight, folks, that sense of responsibility also rests with we Christians. those of us who have received blessing from the Jewish people. We've received our Bible. We've received all of our patriarchs and matriarchs, those illuminated lights that we follow. I was preaching yesterday in New Jersey at Resting Place, and I was speaking from Habakkuk. What a powerful prophet, Habakkuk. He says, write the vision and make it plain. Habakkuk gives so much hope. We have received this from the Jewish people, and we have the blessing to come alongside the state of Israel and the Jewish people in a moment when there is rising anti-Semitism all around us. And folks, it's extraordinary. It's one of those mind-boggling things that even as great blessing rises, like Rabbi is talking about, the peace that God is using Rabbi to bring in the Middle East, somehow simultaneously you see this rise of anti-Semitism in Europe and America. And that is why I want to commission all of you, be involved in our Night to Honor Israel that is coming up March the 12th in New Brunswick, New Jersey, 6 p.m. They'll put that in the comments again. And then April the 1st, to our knowledge, the world's largest interfaith Seder in Rancho Cucamonga, California. And then I'll just let you know, in November, we'll be having our Buffalo Celebrates Israel. The Gersons will be flying up to be with us. Rabbi, we want to get you back to Buffalo one day.
As long as it's before snow season on there.
So there'll be 2 weeks in July that we can make that work. There'll be 2 weeks
I'll
in
take
July.
1 week in July.
So folks, make a decision to get involved. Make a decision to partner. Make a decision to be a voice. We are our brother's keeper. It is upon every person who cares about the future of the planet. We must rescue this world from extremism in any form, whether that's Islamic extremism, whether that is far white supremacy extremism, whatever manifestations of extremism we see, we have to say that God's shalom comes in the midst of that. And that's what happens when Jews and Christians come together, sharpen one another, learn from one another, and move forward in a better path for humanity. And that's what we see from the life of Joseph. Joseph could have been bitter. He could have been angry. I'm telling you, this story could have ended with Joseph saying, off with their heads. In a second, he could have executed judgment upon his brothers out of anger and poisonous and toxicity. And that's the kind of world we see around us today. He didn't. He chose a path of forgiveness. He chose a path of free will and choice, and seeing that God had a master plan in the midst of it. And that's what God wants us to walk in. Rabbi, our time is slipping away from us. I want to give you the last 4 minutes to bring us a closing thought. Folks, if you've not had a chance, hit the share button. That's how this message increases out there, and how more and more we see folks joining in literally from all around the world. From Korea lately, we've had more and more joining on from South Korea, all over the world. But this is an hour where Jews and Christians are coming together. Christians are rediscovering, yes, Rachel, mercy triumphs over judgment. Folks, how many times do we want and need mercy in our lives? Let's be those who give mercy, and we will reap what we sow. We will receive back what we give out. Some call that karma. The Bible calls it the law of sowing and reaping. If you sow seeds of kindness, you sow seeds of peace, you sow seeds of reconciliation, you will reap that back in your life. Rabbi, one question, vayechi. What does that mean? Do we know what that means, that phrase, vayechi?
Yeah, the word vayechi means "and he lived." Now, what's so fascinating, that a Torah portion that is preoccupied with the death of Jacob and the death of Joseph should bear the title Vayechi, and he lived. That's the second time in the book of Genesis, because the portion that deals with the death of our matriarch Sarah What's the title of that portion? Chaye Sarah, the life of Sarah. Because at a time of supreme loss of a loved one, we are overwhelmed by what death has taken from us. But in Judaism, our tradition wants us to remember what life has left with us in terms of the legacy, in terms of the values. I mean, look at this week's portion of Vayechi and Jacob's final will when he calls all his sons and children together.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't speak of valuables, of possessions, of goods. He only speaks about values. Values, not valuables. That's what he wanted his children to remember.
Wow.
And that comes back to my opening theme and our opening discussion about what we choose to remember. And Jacob's children could have chosen to remember all the conflict, the strife. Jacob, who is also a wonderful example of what the Bible is all about. In Judaism, it's not about having perfect leaders. It's about having great leaders. The Torah, the Bible, goes out of its way to demonstrate. Look at every patriarch. Look at King David. Look at King Solomon. Look at Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. They all had their successes and their failures. They weren't perfect leaders, but they were great leaders because first and foremost, they were human. It's about being human.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that at a time of death, even the loss of a patriarch like Jacob or a profound biblical personality like Joseph, it's about Vayechi, the fact that he lived and the legacy that he's leaving. And one final thought, that when he calls his children together, then he asks Joseph to bring his two children, Manasseh and Ephraim.
Mm-hmm.
Now, remember, Manasseh is the older child.
Right.
Okay. But who does Jacob bless first? Ephraim.
Right.
Ephraim before Manasseh. And our rabbis debate this. Why he chose to bless the younger child before the older child? Because Ephraim and Manasseh are probably the unique demonstration in the entire book of Genesis of brothers getting along. And they got along to such an extent that Manasseh, the older brother, showed no resentment that the younger brother was being blessed first. Contrast that with Cain and Abel.
Mm-hmm.
Contrast that with the story of Jacob and Esau. Contrast that with the story of Joseph and his brothers. But here are his two grandchildren. He purposely blesses the younger one first to show that this is where brothers need to be. Whether you're the older, whether you're the younger, brothers need to be and come together.
Folks, it's been an amazing night talking about reconciliation, talking about unity, talking about choosing to remember the best, choosing to forget the rest, so that we can move forward in a path of peace. And we've been led in this discussion by someone who has lived this in really three amazing arenas. One, the Hamptons Synagogue, someplace that people said would never flourish, would never grow. But now I'm telling you, it is one of the great synagogues of our generation. And you need to experience it through their weekly television program. And Sonia, put in one more time, Sonia, their website, if you would. And then Rabbi moved in the reconciliation movement between the African American and the Jewish community. And now Rabbi is leading this as President Herzog, the president of Israel, just called him the world's most influential rabbi when it comes to Jewish, Arab, Jewish, Muslim relations. And so we're seeing this from someone who lives out these values in front of us. Rabbi, so many are typing in the comments. It's going to go down. It's going to be one of your great phrases tonight: values rather than valuables. It's so
powerful. No, it's values and not values.
Yes, I'm sorry. Values, not valuables. Yes, yeah. Values, not valuables.
That was Jacob's parting message to his children and to his grandchildren. We see an example, probably the first ethical will ever in the Bible.
Amen. Folks, tune in to Rabbi's broadcast. You're going to be blessed when you do. Follow him on all of his social media channels. You can find him at Rabbi Marc Schneier, MarcSchneier. Find him on Facebook, on Instagram, Twitter, and then increasingly on Instagram in 2023. And Rabbi, it's been too long since we've done something together. We've got to get you back to Buffalo. We'd love to do some programming together. Everybody, we want to see you March the 12th in New Jersey, April the 1st in Rancho Cucamonga. I will be leaving on January the 29th for Israel. I'll be leading the global leadership of YWAM, Youth with a Mission. They have never before done a united mission to Israel, and I will be leading that. God bless you, Natalie Newman. I'll be leading that at the end of this month, so pray for me there. Tune into the Tabernacle broadcast every week. I will be home on Sunday at the Tabernacle preaching, just finishing up my book here on Nehemiah this week. Rabbi, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you, Robert, and thank you for being such a blessing, first and foremost in my life and in the life of my family, and for being such a blessing for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel, and for greater humankind.
Well, I am blessed to be able to do so because of the wonderful team of Eagles Wings that supports us, and that's all of you. God bless you, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem.